Welcome to today's Explainer. We're getting into something super personal today, a really moving account of bouncing back from severe social withdrawal. It's a journey that doesn't involve scaling Mount Everest or fighting literal dragons. It's about finding this incredible, deep-down courage to take what look like tiny steps, the kinds of steps most of us take for granted every single day. So if you've ever felt completely frozen by anxiety, or just the thought of walking out your front door feels like way too much, or honestly, if you've ever just felt stuck in your own life, this explainer is going to change how you look at your own progress. We're going to see what it actually takes to reclaim your life, literally one microscopic step at a time. Let's jump right in.
We're kicking things off by looking at this quote straight from the source material. It says, "The apply button pushed in fear is not a sign of weakness, but a mark of courage." I mean, wow. Think about that for a second. We usually think if we're terrified, if our hands are shaking, it means we're failing, right? We think we aren't ready. But the author realized something huge here. Taking action while you are absolutely terrified, that is the exact definition of bravery. It's doing the thing even when every fiber of your being is screaming at you to retreat.
And to really wrap our heads around how much courage we're talking about, we have to look at this number: 4. That represents 4 whole years of stopped time. 4 years of the author being completely isolated, totally withdrawn from society, just staying inside the safety of their home while the rest of the world kept spinning without them. When you've been unplugged for that long, just stepping outside feels like trying to move a mountain with your bare hands. The outside world doesn't just feel far away, it feels completely alien. It feels impossible.
Section 1. Big step after 4 years.
Imagine the physical toll of trying to take that very first step. As an in-person job interview was coming up, the author's sleep became shallow and restless. By morning, their body felt like lead. Before even opening the door, they stood totally paralyzed right there in the entryway. Just trying to tie their shoelaces and take a breath took this superhuman willpower. Their heart was racing, palms sweating. Look, this wasn't just your standard pre-interview jitters. This was a visceral, full-body physiological battle against severe anxiety, just to leave the house.
Now, what's absolutely amazing here is how the author flips the script on what failure means. So they pushed through that massive physical wall, went to the interview, struggled deeply to speak, and ultimately got a rejection letter. Normally, society says, well, you failed, you didn't get the job. But they realized something crucial. The sheer action of stepping outside and moving that 4 years of stopped time was a definitive, monumental personal victory. The outcome didn't actually matter. They finally broke the seal. And that is a huge win.
Section 2. Weight of the apply button.
So it turns out the digital world doesn't give you a free pass on anxiety either. The source describes this moment where the author is sitting safely in their room, applying for a second job online, and their fingers literally freeze over the mouse. Clicking that single apply button triggered intense chest palpitations. Let that sink in. It really shows how even one tiny, microscopic digital click carries this massive, crushing burden of re-engaging with society. The fear doesn't care if it's a physical door or a digital button. The barrier feels exactly the same.
But here's the real game changer. It's all about how we view those bodily reactions. The author had this profound shift in perspective. To them, those chest palpitations, that racing heart, it isn't a weakness. Actually, it is undeniable physical proof that you are bravely challenging your comfort zone. If your heart is pounding out of your chest, it means you're fighting. It means you care. That reaction is literally a badge of honor, showing you are actively trying to change your life, not a signal to give up. Section 3. Valuing process over the results. This brings us to the absolute core epiphany of this whole journey. Take a look at this. On the left, we've got traditional success, right? Getting the job, acing the interview, being a social butterfly. If you only measure yourself against that standard, especially when you're struggling, it is a guaranteed recipe for crushed self-esteem. But on the right, we shift our focus entirely to micro-success. Just showing up to the venue, pushing that terrifying apply button, quietly participating. When you place all the value on the courage of the process itself, it completely changes the game. You finally start seeing the mountains you're actually moving. To keep this empowering mindset going, the author suggests breaking your daily life down into these tiny, manageable steps. Step 1, wake up and change your clothes. Step 2, clean your room. Step 3, before bed, recall 3 things you accomplished today. And hey, on those really heavy days when your mind is a storm and the world is just too loud, getting out of your pajamas and putting on regular clothes is a legitimate, massive achievement. We have to start validating these foundational steps, because you can't run a marathon if you don't first practice putting on your shoes.
Section 4. Silent participation in the society.
Let's be real, throwing yourself into a new group setting is terrifying for almost anyone, let alone someone re-entering society. The author decided to join a local garbage collection volunteer event and struggled so deeply to maintain conversations, basically just managing these very short, clipped replies. And yeah, that naturally led to some intense, heavy awkwardness. I think we can all relate to that specific anxiety, right? Where your brain just freezes, you can't make casual conversation flow, and you feel like you are standing out in the absolute worst way possible.
But let's look at how this builds on our earlier point about measuring success. Expected participation says you need to engage in lively banter, tell jokes, and socialize easily to be a quote-unquote good volunteer. But instead of viewing their silence as a failure, the author reframes this experience entirely. Actual participation, simply being present, working quietly, picking up trash side by side with other people, is a completely valid and highly meaningful form of societal participation. You are contributing. You're showing up. You absolutely don't have to be loud to belong.
And honestly, there's a kind of magic in that silence. By finding peace in a solitary physical act, just focusing purely on the rhythm of gathering the trash, it actually allowed those intense, anxious thoughts to quiet down. The physical movement was an anchor. And at the end of the day, looking at those full garbage bags provided a tangible, undeniable feeling of success and contribution to the community. They had proof they did something good, without ever needing to utter a single word to prove their worth.
Section 5. Protecting your mental recovery pace.
The author very smartly scheduled a counseling session the day after these intense events. Verbalizing all these chaotic experiences to a professional helps lighten the emotional load incredibly. It takes that tangled mess in your head and organizes it. More importantly, it helps map out your psychological triggers. You figure out exactly what thoughts cause those chest palpitations or what specific environment caused that conversational freeze. Once you map those patterns, you can build up much better preparation and emotional armor for the next time you decide to step out that front door. From that counseling, the author emphasizes a vital, non-negotiable lesson. Do not rush. When you have pushed yourself, when you're exhausted from trying to navigate a world that feels overwhelming, you must prioritize rest. You have to fiercely protect your own unique pace of recovery. Never ever compare your Chapter 1 to someone else's Chapter 20. Someone else's Easy Tuesday might be your hardest mountain, and that is totally okay. Intentionally celebrate the fact that you moved slightly more today than you did yesterday. Which brings us to the end of today's explainer, and I want to leave you with this one question to really think about. Today, what small action will you count as a success? Whether it's clicking that intimidating apply button, stepping out your front door for a breath of fresh air, or simply getting out of bed and putting on clothes when everything feels too heavy. Acknowledge your micro victories. They are not signs of weakness, they're the truest marks of courage. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.